We all know the delivery apps. They've gotten massively popular in society now. Everyone's DoorDashing or Uber Eats their meals. And Morning Brew put out a video kind of digging into this, seeing what's going on with these apps. Are they actually sustainable? Will they be around for the long term, right? Because we all know that their business model doesn't actually work. They have a lot of problems as like figuring out how to pay drivers and stuff to actually get people to continue doing this work, because obviously people are getting upset. It's been just basically tips. That's all the pay comes from, really. And customers are getting upset with that. Drivers are getting upset people aren't tipping. It's just a whole thing. And figuring out how to monetize this thing, not easy.
Their revenue is in the hundreds of billions. Investors have poured billions into them, but none of these apps have ever been profitable. They have a few problems: a complex business model, low margins, but their biggest problem is that they've never really figured out how to pay their labor. And they've been experimenting a lot with that. So much that governments have had to intervene. So all of these problems raise the question, can these apps in their current form exist for much longer?
I guess that is the big question. If you look at these companies, they're public companies. DoorDash launched their IPO, and since their IPO, the chart's not looking too great. But they have to figure out how to make money, and that's been the whole model of all of these apps. Uber, DoorDash, all these guys, Uber Eats, they all throw profit to the wind, not care about it in the beginning, grow super fast, get a huge user base, people become dependent on them and want these services, and then they upcharge with all the fees that start to come out and everything, and try to make money that way while ruining the experience and hoping that they've just become so integrated to people's lives that people aren't willing to give them up. But how long will that strategy actually work for? Nobody knows.
Oh. So chaotic. Derek, I'm doing my best. I'm really jealous of her lunch. Are my tires flat? No. Making an app for people to order food delivery might seem pretty simple, but in reality, all the pieces that the apps are trying to balance are pretty complex. These apps work within a four-sided marketplace of the apps, restaurants, deliverers, and finally, the customers. And the apps control each aspect of the marketplace. Historically, they just took a loss and made sure everyone else got paid while they focused on growth. Here's how an order broke down in 2019, as best as we can figure out because they don't release this stuff publicly. When a driver got paid from DoorDash, 49.4% came from the base pay, which is the flat amount they're guaranteed when accepting an order. 12.3% came from bonuses, and 38.4% came from the customer tip. For Uber Eats, drivers got 71.7% from base pay, 7.5% from bonuses, and 20.9% from the customer tip.
This is the breakdown of how this DoorDash drivers make money. So base pay is about half of it. Customer tips, the other half basically, and bonuses make up a small amount. You can see this here. Bonuses make up a small amount here. But the bigger question really is, we can look at comparing it to Uber Eats here. And it's weird that it's so different. Base pay for Uber Eats, much higher, and customer tip a little bit lower, right? The base pay is the vast majority of it. So do people either just not tip on Uber Eats, and the tips are lower, or is the base pay higher? I know people used to do Uber Eats when they were a newer thing and they were trying to compete with DoorDash. They had a bunch of bonuses. You could make a bunch of money doing these bonuses. They were pretty easy to do. That's what people did. But then they just shift away from that, because after they get this kind of market saturation, try to get in the market, they can't offer that because it's burning money, and they have to try to figure out how to make money. So, I think this difference between Uber Eats and DoorDash is kind of interesting to see, why. Does Uber Eats pay more, or did the Uber Eats customers tip less?
The apps wanted to lower costs by paying workers less, but they didn't want to lose workers. So they started encouraging customers to tip more so the workers wouldn't see as much of a drop in pay. Here's how the pay breaks down before and after the changes. For DoorDash, base pay decreased to 48.2% and customer tips increased to make up 51.8% of drivers' total pay. Uber Eats had an even bigger jump in customer tips, jumping almost 30%.
So I guess this is the answer to the problem that we're coming up with for DoorDash and Uber Eats is pay people less, right? Obviously, they've said it comes up with its own problem. If you pay people less, they're just going to stop doing the work. If it doesn't become worth it to do DoorDash or Uber Eats, people just aren't going to do it. And then you're screwed because you don't have any employees. So you're pretty dependent on these people, deliverers, doing the job. Otherwise, you don't have a business at all. So I guess base pay for DoorDash didn't really change, 49 to 48. I mean, it's like 1% went down. Uber Eats dropped drastically from what it was before, paying 71%, looked like they were more, to now actually being 44%. So Uber Eats dropped heavy, and obviously the thing for both of these, customer tips are massive. They basically are the other half of this thing, over half. So the tips are the main way people make money, and the main way I guess these apps are trying to become profitable. And there is a whole nother part to this business model that people are taking advantage of, which is crazy that it's popped up, but like renting out their accounts. And they talk about it here basically for people who are illegal. They are doing DoorDash things or waiting for citizenship or doing something. They'll do DoorDash, but they can't have their own account. So they have to go to someone and rent the account from someone and pay them weekly to rent the account to be able to do DoorDash. So that's just another crazy kind of weird thing that's popped up that people are taking advantage of.
Another piece of these labor issues, especially in New York, is that many of these workers are working illegally as they wait to obtain a work permit in the U.S. One of those immigrants working on an illegally rented Uber Eats account is Mecca Milano, an immigrant from Venezuela who's been delivering food in New York City since he arrived almost a year ago.
Ella me cobraba por la cuenta $150 semanal. Yo hacía todo lo que hacía y ya ella me pagaba mi plata a mí y se agarraba su plata de ella.
So this is pretty crazy that this popped up as a business model that people are just renting out these accounts. I guess that's a way to scale it. That's been the biggest kind of complaint when you look at this as a gig work or some sort of job. Like, how do you scale it? There's obviously, if you're doing DoorDash, you can only deliver so many things in a day. You can only work 24 hours a day. But if you want to scale it and buy more or get more deliverers, right? But they can just do it on their own. So now people found a way around that to get people who can't do it on their own and pay them $150 a week just to use their account. And the funnier thing is, if you look at the app and it tells you Jessica's coming to deliver your food, and this is Jessica that shows up, maybe there's a little bit of confusion there. So I don't know. It's just crazy that this different types of models have shown up. That DoorDash, all these companies, we know that they are not the greatest revenue or the greatest profit companies. I don't even think they make a profit. So they have to figure out how they're going to do this. And this has been the Silicon Valley model for decades now. Build a company, build an app, screw profit. Who cares about that? Don't worry about making money for a few years. Get your customer base, your user base up, continue that growth, get people using the app, and then figure out how to monetize, which ultimately usually ruins the service because they have to add so many more fees or figure out ways how to make money. You can look at this with all these apps. DoorDash got massively expensive, so many fees. Uber Eats the same thing. Airbnb, they used to be cheaper than hotels, and people say this is great, and now they've had to monetize. Not so great anymore. The fees insane. The price is ridiculous. It's cheaper to stay at a hotel now, and better. You don't have to do all this work like throw out the garbage, make the beds, and clean the house before you leave while still paying a cleaning fee. So it leaves the big question, are these apps going to be able to stay around? Because figuring out how to monetize, throwing a bunch of fees at people, making them pay more, I don't think is a massively viable option. At some point, people will get fed up and go back to the old ways, right? Airbnb, people will go back to hotels and not care. Uber Eats and DoorDash, they'll just go get their food and come back. If you're not making like hundreds of thousands of dollars a month, right? If you're not like a streamer or YouTuber or some massive person where your time is literally more valuable to be doing whatever you're doing instead of getting food, then, that makes sense. But if you're not that, I don't think you should be getting these delivery services anyways. But these apps might be in trouble. And if they don't figure this out, how to make people happy, customers happy, the delivery drivers and their basically employees happy, they're not going to be around for much longer. Let me know what you think. Do you think these apps are in trouble, or they're just going to figure it out? Or are they so integrated into people's lives that people just aren't willing to give them up and will just pay whatever for it? That's it for this video. As always, don't forget to smash the button and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in my next video.